Hi, everyone. Welcome to part 2 of our roundtable on educational games. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, I highly recommend that you do so first to get some context on our panelists and the amazing educational games that they have built. All set? Great. Get ready to hear our panelists' responses to audience questions about building great educational experiences on Roblox.
Thank you everyone for all the awesome questions and the great conversation so far. I'm also a first alum, by the way, so I do have fond memories of building very poor robotics that didn't go very far in the tournaments. But our first question that we have for y'all is, what is a sustainable revenue model for building educational games on Roblox? Would the usual in-game purchases work?
I mean, that's a great question. If I ever find out, you'll be the first to know. Lua Learning isn't monetized at all because that's not really its goal. While it would be nice, it mainly just gets premium payouts, Roblox's engagement-based payouts, which has been a godsend for people like me. I want to make sure that Lua Learning is always free to use because, like I said, part of being accessible to everybody means that I don't want to put it behind any sort of monetary gate. And there have been some very generous donations to help fund the development. But beyond that, I've been planning some features that are geared towards teachers rather than the players themselves. And I think that some of those features could be monetized a little better because that's not preventing it from getting into the hands of students. And so like subscription-based models for hosting a classroom type thing. That could be one way of going about it without it being obstructive.
Yeah, I think it depends a little bit on your focus of the game, because we started out with the education first in mind and realized that, if you don't have the players in the first place, you're not gonna educate them and you're certainly not gonna get revenue from them. So we had to shift that to being entertainment or fun first, and then education added onto that. And if you work in those constraints, the revenue model can be whatever, whatever works for entertainment games. And I think what a lot of the challenge you face if you're coming from an educational aspect and wanting to make a game is that you make it educational first, because I don't think there's a super good formula, at least I haven't found one yet, where that's also sustainable revenue wise. So you want to make sure that you appeal to a wider market or the mass market if you want to go that wide, to get the little revenue from everyone rather than some big whales.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would also say that monetization can exist in an educational experience. Yeah, but depending on your goals, you might just need to take some extra care with how you go about it. Yeah, for our game, we are planning to have monetization. I think a lot of it is going to be around the cosmetic parts that the player can add to their robots to kind of help give more avenues for personal expression. And then if we do decide to monetize like the functional parts, we'll just want to be very careful to make sure that like the amount of inventory that you get just right when you join is generous, so that players can still build most things that they might happen to want to build without actually having to go in that direction. Just so exactly, since one of the goals for the experience is increasing access. Yeah, we want to make sure to be totally sure that we're not stepping on that. I'd also say that like in the classroom, like monetization doesn't really have a place. So if you are planning for that to be an implementation context for your game, it's probably good practice to like make it toggleable so that educators don't have to deal with that part when they have all the other concerns that they're dealing with.
All right, thank you. Next question. This is a very common one I see. So what should teachers know about education on Roblox when wanting to implement, I guess, Roblox into the classroom? It can be hard to convince parents / staff to add Roblox due to it being considered a game.
I think a primary thing here would be what are you trying to achieve, because I think Roblox or any game as a tool in an educational context is fantastic, but you can't just drop a game like that on someone and expect it to work, and I think that's also where the skepticism comes in. So what I would actually love to see more, and maybe Roblox is actually working on this, but that is to partner up game studios or particular educational games or educational focused games with educational institutions to, for example, help define curriculums or sort of activities that the teacher can use, and not just give them sort of a random game. And probably to what Colin said, being able to toggle that in game so that you see the things you want to see during your session can be really helpful. Because say if any top game, Jailbreak, for example, also had like an educational aspect to it, you'd be distracted a lot from what you're probably trying to achieve in that class session by all the other features that are enabled. So once again, like, I think it comes back to what are you really trying to get out of that session and that game, and if there's any way to make it relevant for the curriculum.
I think Roblox's education department is also working a lot towards that, making it easier for Roblox developers to get their games in partnership with classrooms. And also, I think part of it is just Roblox is public image, where my sister is a teacher and she asked her students, raise your hand if you've ever played Minecraft or Roblox, and every hand goes up. And they were also quick to inform her that those are blocked on the school's internet. So there's going to be some pushback, and it'll take a while for that to change, but I think it's going to happen for sure.
What tooling do you find right now or think will become the most useful when developing the future of education?
One thing that I've found to be very useful in general for developing educational experiences is to test it on real people of your target audience. So like I've often tested Lua Learning on my little brother because he's like exactly the right audience. So I think tooling to be able to do that remotely more effectively with at scale, where you could have like a lot of testers and be able to see what they're doing and see where their choke points are would be very useful. Because right now the best way to do that, I think, is just like have them record their screens and send you the video of them trying it, which works, but then you got to sift through a lot. So I would think something like a heat map or a replay system where you can like visualize this data of their play sessions in a more efficient way would be really useful to be able to refine your systems and game.
Yeah, it's not necessarily tooling, but I wish there was some more granularity on the analytics for age groups are reaching, and some more, I guess, solidity in that. Because when we view the age groups visiting our game, it's 6- and 18+ that are the two biggest ones, and I bet that a majority of the 18+ ones are actually somewhere in the age range 14 to 18. But limiting, they turn off the limiting chat on their accounts by labeling it as 18+. So for our sake, it would have been super helpful to have known more for sure who are actually playing our game, so that we know that the people we're targeting actually are getting are the ones we get stats from, for example. And that's not possible today, at least without circumventing the system, and that's not good.
All right. Next question. This one goes to Zach specifically. Besides working on Lua Learning, you are known for your open source projects. Do you have plans on expanding this to become full-time?
It's very difficult to do open source full time because there's just no money. Um, when I retire, that's the plan. I'm just going to be making cool stuff and open sourcing it. But until then, unfortunately, no. What I do currently is maybe every other weekend, I work on something that's caught my interest. If I had an idea during the week of something cool, I write it down. And then when I have my open source weekend, I'll work on that and then open source it. It helps me stay motivated and passionate because if I've been working on Lua Learning for 4 years now, more, and it can be very tiring to work on one thing for that long. So to have like these breaks where you just work on something new and interesting, um, like I made Wind Shake, which is a system to add like dynamic wind and foliage to your games. And over at Untamed Animals, they use that to make their forests feel more alive. Um, so things like that, where I get to see my work being used and shared and know that I'm making a positive impact is fantastic. And it's one of my favorite things to do. It's just not something I could really pursue full time. It's definitely more of like a weekend hobby type thing.
Got to keep the lights on, huh? All right. Next question. With Roblox ramping up on branded partnerships, do you think educational experiences will be part of that? If so, how would you go about picking a brand to align with that does not take away from the educational aspect?
I think that there are a lot of brands that are already companies that are built around education. So you wouldn't need to have like an educational Gucci experience. You can have an educational experience with companies that are already all about that. So it would really be a little different from the brand integrations that we've seen in the past. I think it would be more of like kind of like Filament Games moving to Roblox. It would be more like that, where you just have an existing educational company move towards building Roblox experiences. At least that's how I see it happening.
Yep. Yeah, I would totally agree. And our work with First is a great example of that. And they're already like our goals are already very much aligned in that way. So
I think it'd be also interesting to see more, museums and real world educational institutions like museums actually coming onto the platform, because you have a lot of institutions out there that aren't necessarily schools, but that still has a purpose of teaching you about something or yeah, leaving you with something more when you leave. And digitizing that, I think, can be very possible without kind of going too far away from your own sort of brand alignment.
Yeah, shout out to anyone who grew up in or around Philadelphia like me. Would love to see the Franklin Institute on Roblox. That would be a great time for me. Blast from the past. Okay, moving on to our next question. Do you start off with an age range in mind with your game market, or do you target a theme basis?
So for Lua Learning, I definitely went with more of a theme basis. I don't care how old you are. If you want to learn Lua, you're part of my audience. That does make it a little difficult when designing because I can't make any assumptions about the player. I can't assume that they have knowledge or don't. Um, and so I try to design the content in ways that where if you don't have knowledge, you can go through it and you'll still be fine. But if you do, you can like get through it faster or maybe skip a lesson here or there. You're not like locked into doing them in order. You can just click on any lesson at any time. And that also helps with like just letting the experienced users come in and skip the first couple chapters and so on. Um, but yeah, definitely just for Lua Learning, at least focused on a theme, a topic rather than an audience.
Yeah, same for Untamed Animals. While we certainly need to kind of focus on a certain age group when doing more of the more complex features, our game has always been about providing a nature environment for anyone. We want to attract everyone who likes nature or is intrigued by nature or would like to have their curiosity sparked by nature. So it's yeah, but it gets difficult. Like once you want to start actually making gameplay, you have to have some user group in mind because you can't really hit all of them at once.
Colin, anything to add?
not really. Yeah, I agree with kind of like thinking first about the topic and then yeah, exactly like they've said, it's helpful to have a range in mind that you're designing toward first, but yeah, and then from there, like thinking about ways to broaden that in ways that are easy.
Awesome. All right. Here's another popular one. A lot of parents would pay for meaningful educational experiences on Roblox for their kids, but most of them don't understand Roblox games very well. How would you reach out to parents and engage them?
Super, super great question. And it's actually one of our focus areas now the next couple of weeks and months is to see if there can be more of a Untamed Animals X schools sort of partnership opportunity where we have to get in touch with these parents and these educators and everyone to kind of see if there's an audience we can tap into or provide value for that isn't currently either on the platform or on these games on Roblox. So while it's certainly not a response to the question, this is a lot on our mind and we're trying to find the best ways of doing this as well.
Okay. I think we're going to hop over this one for now because it's more for the Roblox education team. Our next question is, what are your thoughts on Roblox esports?
Yeah, I think RSL is kind of shaping up to like we definitely have that in the back of our minds as we're developing here in the early stages. Yeah, I don't know what more to say than I'm excited about it, and I think it's possible and intriguing.
There you go. First competitions coming soon. All right. Next question. Is marketing an educational experience similar to standard games, or are there differences in how you approach raising awareness and acquiring players?
I've kind of gone with the usual Roblox developer method of just like, having a Twitter account where you talk about development and occasionally running small ads on Roblox. So I wouldn't say it's too different. I'd say the content of the ads are obviously a little different, but the methods remain the same. In terms of content, rather than trying to entice players with like the gameplay loop, like where you talk about like how fun the game is, while that could definitely work, I try to have the content talk about what they'll get out of it, right? Because as we said in the beginning, educational experiences are things where you walk away with something. So the content of the ad isn't trying to sell you the game, it's trying to sell you the content. This way you end up with audience members who are interested in what you have to offer.
Yeah, I also think this is a bit of a two splits because depending on your focus of the game, like we have educational as a secondary focus. So we primarily actually want to reach standard game audience. So then obviously using a standard game marketing strategy is good. And we're also strong believers that, there are two sort of buckets of players. You have the people that are looking to learn something, but then you have people that go on Roblox to be entertained. And we, with our game, try to reach the people, well, preferably both, but we try to reach the entertainment bunch because we think that's a bigger bunch. And we think a lot of the things we're trying to convey needs to come through fun and social, like positive interactions. So for our sake, certainly standard game strategy on that one.
All right. Next question. Has there been a deeper dive in special needs environments? Are there aspects of Roblox that could be of value in those cases?
So this is a fantastic question. I don't know if there has been, but I know that there will be. I think at RDC 21, Dave talked about this when I asked him about the future of education on Roblox during his panel. And I know that for Lua Learning, I've put a lot of focus into accessibility. So we have options for like reduced motion, no like particle effects, better themes, and you can edit your text size and colors and all that stuff. So people who are visually impaired can still access the game. And there's definitely no audio impairment issues because it's audio is used to enhance the experience, but it's never required. Um, I don't know how well Roblox currently supports non-standard controller configurations for people with physical disabilities, um, but I imagine that that's something that we could probably do better on. And I would love to see some more educational experiences be more accessible.
Yeah, just we haven't done a lot of this on our own, but we last year had a great talk with Andrea, Bitwise Andrea, from Roblox about accessibility and how important we think those things are in not just educational games, but in all games. So we haven't done anything specific for education, but we had a lot of great conversations on how we can make all our games accessible to anyone, and that it shouldn't ever be a limit with special needs or not. We think it's important that everyone's included in this virtual community we're building.
I want to make sure that this makes it into the YouTube version for people who aren't live. Huge shout out to Andrea. She has been so wonderful. The chat right now is popping off with everybody showing love and support and thanks and gratitude for all the work she's put in. So thank you, Andrea, if you're watching this.
I was about to say, I'm very happy you guys name dropped Andrea. She is our resident accessibility guru. Yes, very passionate about this topic as well. If only she was in the chat, we could summon her here to. I'm sure she could talk for another 2 hours on everything. But yeah. So our next question: what do you see as some of the biggest opportunities for learning and impact for Roblox in K-12 education? Ooh, we stumped him on this one.
I like how all of us just did the exact same pose of like.
Yeah.
I think that making things engaging through gaming, well, this isn't specific necessarily to Roblox, but just educational games in general, the engagement really helps for that age group because it's really hard to get young audiences to sit and read a long wall of text, whereas like I did sit and read the entire Lua manual by the authors of the language, but most people don't do that because it's very dull. And so by gamifying, you make it really more accessible, not just to people who have special needs, but accessible to people who just have shorter attention spans and need to be engaged.
Yeah, exactly.
And using it as interactive examples that the player or the student in to a larger extent can choose the outcome of, or see what's right and wrong depending on what they choose. I think is a really great opportunity for getting that under your skin, and that's not necessarily to Roblox only, but to any form of gamification of the K-12 curriculum, or any curriculum really.
I would say one thing that Roblox does offer, especially in this space, is everyone has a Roblox account by now, and so you're really getting it into the hands of a lot more people than if you had it off platform on your own, because Roblox, they don't have to set up a new account to play your game. They're already there. They're just maybe 2 clicks away, and then they're in your educational game. So it's just accessible to a much wider variety of people. You already have those lanes, that network to get it in where you need it to be.
Yeah, I was also just going to say, like, I think the first step is building up the number and quality of experiences that are in the learn and explore sort on Roblox. Yeah, just making more things like the ones we're making and want to make more we can do that, the more people will see that, oh yeah, these kinds of experiences are out there, and they're just as they're just as good of a use of time as the ones that are not in that category.
All right, we have a follow-up to our esports question from earlier. What are your thoughts on using competition in Roblox, like for esports games, for learning about things like sportsmanship and teamwork?
I think a lot of this actually happens already in many of the games on Roblox. So not specifically esport made games, although there's been some really interesting like group war competitions, in previous years. So while not established as an esport in Roblox specifically, it's actually been around at least 10 years, but any game, any shooting game, for example, on Roblox, I think actually educates a little bit on this without you thinking much about it. So I think there's great potential there, but I don't think an esport league necessarily is needed to do that. It could just help kind of organize it a little bit more.
So I have a feature that I haven't shown because it's nowhere near ready, but the quest board that I showed earlier, I've been working on a version of that that's multiplayer, where there's multiple people on that board, and you have to work together and collaborate to solve 2-player puzzles. So that adds like a layer of complexity. So you have to think about how these systems will interact with each other. So you learn a lot, and also requires you to collaborate with a friend and learn those team building skills as well.
Yeah, I also wanted to shout out kind of First's ethos of gracious professionalism here and cooperation. I think these are things that are really informing the experience we're trying to create with RSL, both in terms of like making sure we're providing cooperative challenges as well as competitive ones, but also like incorporating cooperative aspects into the competitive challenges themselves, so that you get rewarded for like doing certain subtasks where you're actually cooperating with the other team as you're playing against them. So that's one of the things we're thinking about. Also, there was a neat idea that we discussed recently where we have this currency called medals that you get by playing challenges, and it's also what you use to buy things in the shop. And it'd be neat to maybe give each player one of those every day that they can use to just give someone else that that was on their team and they made a good play, or maybe they helped them figure out something in the building experience, just as a way to like, yeah, exactly, kind of reinforce that everyone's kind of in the experience for the same reason, and encourage players helping each other in that way.
All right. Our next question is, educational games tend to skew younger. How do you create educational experiences that can be aged up?
I feel like I have a kind of cheat answer here. Programming doesn't care how old you are. I started when I was 12. Some people start when they're in college, but code is code. So I kind of skirt this problem by just picking a topic that is universal across ages.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is based on the topic that you choose to create a game about.
Yeah, for sure. Like we haven't seen that much of it on Roblox yet, but just the past year or maybe 2 years, there's been a lot of very interesting like emotional games and so on pop up on Steam and many other platforms, or even just the hit game probably this fall was Unboxing, which is just like a game about or unpacking. I don't remember what it was called, about just unboxing and moving into a new apartment and just following the journey of the character and learning to know the character. And I think that's also a great example of what an educational game can be without actually being sort of a, hey, I'm going to teach you something. It's, you're getting that emotional connection. And I think that might be hard to get on younger kids, but a very good way to kind of create a bond to older players. And I'd love to see more of that kind of stuff on Roblox as well.
Sounds like you can really extend it to all game design, where it's like really you have a topic, and it's just how you approach that that's going to attract the audience that you want to attract. So Zach, I don't necessarily think you're cheating on your answer there. Programming is programming. It's really just how approachable it is for an age group, right? Okay, our next question. Again, Zach, this might be a favorite one for you, but feel free others to answer as well. Do analytics play a part in when you are creating new educational environments? For example, if they can't get around a certain level, do you monitor this to see whether something needs updating, or more on a general level?
So absolutely. I have analytics for each and every level, every tutorial, every quest, all of it has, I have like a higher level view of the game as a whole, but I have individual analytics for each piece of it so that I could break it down as closely as I need to, or as wide as I need to make sure that I am getting the best content that I can make into the hands of my users.
Yeah, don't have any follow-ups, but I think that's a good way to go about it. And being able to identify where people are struggling is a really powerful way of understanding, whether it's a bug that's keeping them from progressing, or if it's actually too hard or not understandable, and being able to see that just from analytics, like if there's a clear drop in how many people complete stage 5 versus stage 6, for example, then something's up on stage 5.
I also
So,
want to point out
absolutely.
that, I want to point out that adding more analytics costs you nothing. Once you already have your analytics system in place, it's an extra line of code to send an event to your server and then write a query to see that. Once you have all of these systems in place, there's no reason not to just add tons more, right? Like, if I spent all that time developing my analytics system and then didn't use it to its fullest everywhere I could, that would have been a bad use of my time because I'm not utilizing it. So if I'm ever like, maybe I'll need to see some information about this. Okay, analytics.log, the end.
All right. Well, I believe for the remaining questions, we did already cover these topics. So that was a gauntlet of questions. Thank you for answering them. And great questions from the audience. Thank you for asking all those amazing questions. Aaron, I'm going to toss it back over to you.
All right. Thank you, Dan. Thank you for all the awesome questions, everyone. Fabulous conversation. Quite happy to let that continue. Great questions are happening. So to get back into it, I want to talk a little bit specifically about education on Roblox. So what are some of the advantages to developing an educational experience on Roblox?
So I already touched upon this, but like the community and audience is already there for you, which is huge. Like the biggest challenge of getting a game off the ground is getting players, and with Roblox, they're already there. And of course, Roblox offers free hosting and data storage, so you have no upfront costs for that, which is, I mean, Lua Learning couldn't exist without that because it doesn't profit. It's been a money sink. I've spent money on it and I don't get any back, and I'm totally fine with that. My point is simply that Roblox allows things like that to even exist, because otherwise I would be paying a lot in server costs every month that just I wouldn't be able to do that if it weren't for Roblox making this so affordable.
Yeah, I have the robust player base. It's my number one too. I think another big one that I mentioned before is just like it works for schools. Teachers already know what it is, so at least that's a little bit of a leg up on kind of making that transition into seeing it as like an educational tool. And then you can get Roblox on your Chromebook, which is what a lot of teachers and students are using in the classroom. And
yeah, so second what all of them said, very low threshold to get started and absolutely no cost on the developer end, other than time, so instant access to audience and great tools and everything. Yeah, just a good package all around.
Oh yeah, and the fact that I love the fact that a teacher can create a private server just for their classroom for free. And all that you need to do to make that happen is the developer needs to like check a box. Like that's so cool.
Now, why is that so important?
Oh, just because I think if I was an educator, I definitely want to have a private space just for my class, just so I could kind of keep it more what's the word? I don't know, but yeah, just to the class so that I don't have to deal with like other interactions between players that might be distracting.
Got it.
A little more like controlled and isolated,
Mhm.
so that it feels like they're just in their classroom rather than in the open internet.
Yeah, controlled. Yep.
Got it. Yeah, more focused. Cool. All right. Is there anything that you would like to see Roblox as a platform do or do more of with respect to educational games?
I love what the Roblox education department has been doing, and the recent addition of the community fund, where they're funding similar to the game fund with a focus on education. I'm excited to see what comes out of that. I'm sure that there are going to be a lot of great games that are now possible thanks to that. And I think that we've been making big strides in this area, and I'm just excited to see what else they've got in store.
Yep. Likewise.
Great. All right. What types of educational experiences would you like to see on Roblox or see more of?
So I think that for a while now, we've been teaching in pretty much the same ways. And we have this new medium, right? And we have like all these new technologies like VR. And I think that we still have yet to utilize them to their fullest potential. I think that we've translated existing forms of learning into this new medium. So it's like when we got digital art, we first made a paintbrush digitally, and then we went forward and learned, okay, we can make like interesting new tooling, and we got more versatile digital art from there. And I think we're still in that stage a little bit of like just digitally recreating the paintbrush. And I'm very excited to see what the creative minds of people watching this right now are going to come up with to push forward with the future of education in this new medium.
You really are good at the metaphors used to explain your points. That's great. All right. Have you learned anything from developing educational games on Roblox that surprised you?
I mean, I learned a lot just in general. When I started on Lua Learning, I was 16, and I was still learning Lua as I was building it, which led to a lot of tech debt, and a full rewrite is coming. Um, but throughout the process, I learned a lot more about game development in general, and what it takes to teach. It's not as easy as just like, well, I know it, so I can just say it, and then you'll know it. Obviously, it's not that simple. So yeah, I've learned a lot about like how to convey information, and so my metaphors have gotten a little better.
Yeah, I was going to say one thing that our team has learned is that playtesting in an engine where you get multiplayer out of the box is amazing. I've had more fun playtesting this game than anything I've ever worked on, and I think probably most of the studio could say the same. So that's been a very pleasant surprise. Or maybe not that much of a surprise, but very pleasant anyway.
Yeah, also not so much of a surprise, but people are ridiculously engaged, and building up a educational and nature loving community, for example, has been such a blessing for what we're doing. And again, not really a surprise, but also a surprise in that, you think sometimes you're the only one caring for this, and it turns out like it feels sometimes the entire internet suddenly is caring for it as well. And that's really good.
I was also very surprised just how many people are motivated to learn, how much people care. Lua Learning I worked on it for a year, and it would have like maybe 30 players every day, like over the course of the day, not at any given time. It was tiny. And then I wanted to learn more about like how marketing works. So I spent, I think, $10 on an ad. And then I woke up the next morning and it was on the top rated front page with hundreds of thousands more players. And obviously, most of those didn't come from the ad, right? They came from people spreading it word of mouth, saying like, "Hey, check out this cool new educational experience," which surprised me because I didn't realize so many people cared that much and so many people wanted to learn. So once that was there, they all flocked to it and spread it. And so yeah, that was a fantastic surprise.
Awesome. That must have been really exciting.
Oh yeah, it was very stressful because the game was not ready yet. I didn't mean for it to blow up. I was on vacation the next day, so I didn't even like have a way to fix all the bugs that everybody was running into.
Of course. Perfect timing. All right. Well, last question. What advice would you give to individuals or studios that are looking to make their own educational experiences on Roblox?
This ties into what I just said. Ship early and get feedback, right? It's not ready yet, doesn't matter. Ship it or at least like open it in like some closed access to some degree. Because like we've been saying, this whole thing is an iterative process of getting feedback from your testers, getting analytics. And the faster you can get to that point where you have people playing and you have an idea of how your users are going to interact, the better. And so ship as fast as you can and make sure that you're getting it into the hands of people and getting feedback from them, whether that be from like a Discord server with your community where they can like straight up tell you, because it's hard to develop these things in a vacuum. You need to have lines of communication, and or even if it's just analytics, that's like your communication of getting information from your players. You aren't going to be able to build your best if you don't ship, right? You're not going to be able to iterate on your design until you have that first flow of feedback. So just get there as fast as you can. Even if you think you're not ready, you are, ship it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think my big thought that I want to, I guess, leave people with is that education and entertainment can not only exist but serve each other. Like Sigmund has mentioned a few times, like, yeah, you need that engagement. You need people to be engaged if you want to have any hope of impacting them. And likewise, education is fun if you do it right. The experience of learning can serve your engagement goals as well. So that's one of them. And then two is just like make sure you leverage the inherent platform strengths, like avatars, multiplayer, user-generated content, classroom mode. Like these are things that you get for free, and it would be crazy to not take full advantage of them.
Yeah, what they said, ship early. That's my biggest.
I think that's good advice no matter what game you're making on Roblox. Super. Well, yeah, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for all of your great discussion and the questions. I think I'm going to hand it off to Dan now.
All right. We are out of time and out of questions. So that is my cue to wrap things up. I just wanted to thank our amazing panel, Zach, Colin, Sigmund, and of course, Aaron, aka Breakfast Candy, for hosting just some really awesome discussions today. For those who are attending, thank you so much for all of your amazing questions, especially the ones that stumped them, because that made for a fun moment for me. And then those who are watching on YouTube, please, we'd love to hear from you. Drop your questions in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe our content, because we have a lot more amazing content coming your way.